Hamilton's got him covered.
This is the second DRS zone. There's one more to come after this. Hamilton is quite comfortable, I think, with Verstappen this far behind. He starts this year going for a record-breaking 8th World Championship. He has been put under immense pressure by Max Verstappen and Red Bull here tonight. Sir Lewis Hamilton, as he is now, crosses the line and wins the Bahrain Grand Prix. Max Verstappen and Red Bull come home to take second place. They were the pre-race favourites, but by the slenderest margin of just 0.7 of a second. They've been beaten by Mercedes tonight.
Yes, welcome in the paddock. We are back. What a finish. What a call by David Croft on Sky Sports to start off the season. That is the start we all wanted to see. That is an ending of a race we've been waiting for and hoping to get to start off the season. Greeny, hello.
Yeah, we're kicking the tires and lighting the fires, baby. First race of the season, Bahrain in the desert. The heat in the day, the cool at night, and we saw ultimate cool today from Lewis Hamilton. He keeps winning. He keeps on winning. When the hater's going to hate, he's going to keep on winning. It's really been absolutely unbelievable. He just keeps going. Max Verstappen could not have been more disappointed. If anyone saw my Instagram after the race, it was just as disappointing as getting a sweater for Christmas if you thought you were getting a PS5.
Yeah, I pretty much would have to agree with that one. The man looked very sad after that race. And this post-race, he actually skipped over Valtteri Bottas and went right off the bat, finishing second. Usually they go third, second, first when they do the post-race interviews. Yeah, he pumped up there first. The man wanted to get out of Dodge as quick as possible. Was not a happy camper. Did pass Lewis there at the end, but he did it outside the track limits. We'll get into the race recap in our second segment. Right now, we're going to go right into qualifying. What do you got to say about the first session for qualifying, Michael?
Well, as we talked about earlier, and as we've been speaking about for the last couple weeks now, most people and most quote-unquote experts really predicted the bottom five here would be consisting of two teams in particular, which was Haas and Williams, which have just been dreadful in testing and dreadful moving into the season. But that wasn't the case. George Russell squeezed his way into Q2, and we had three of the other four drivers falling in Q1 with pretty miserable times, especially Nikita Mazepin with an awful, awful time.
Mazepin will be his name on this program for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, and we're going to get into Nikita Mazepin a little bit later when we get into the race.
But you already messed it up, man. It's Mazepin. We agreed that is his name for the rest of the season. Mazepin. Can you say it with me? Mazepin.
Mazepin.
Yes.
Mazepin.
Now you may continue, sir. Now you may continue.
I appreciate you giving me the green light here. All right, so lights are off. Here we go. And yeah, it was a fantastic, fantastic qualifying, fantastic race. Let's go to Q2. Where we left Esteban Ocon and the legend Sebastian Vettel, Hall of Famer, in Q1. And actually, before we get to Q2, let's talk about Q1 and let's talk about what went down with Sebastian Vettel, yellow flags, Mazepin spinning out, and all kinds of disaster. Go for it, Cheese.
Oh, yeah, after Mazepin spun, Vettel and Ocon's laps were pretty much spoiled at that point. And they also got a secondary yellows when Sainz had some engine problems on his final flying lap, so they both got caught on two yellow situations, so those laps were pretty much thrown out. Seb decided to try and be gun-ho iguana, as Seb tends to be sometimes, and actually tried to get a lap in, got some penalties that we will talk about when we get to the race recap and why he started where he did. But yeah, they both got caught in some yellow situations from Mazepin and then Sainz having the engine problem. So they got caught out, and that's where they got bumped out because they couldn't throw down laps when everybody else was.
Yeah, and that really takes us into Q2. Again, Vettel disappointing, absolutely, not just the not great showing in Q1, but also the penalty and the points against the driver. So not good. -5 points, which came off this morning, I believe, not after qualifying, but I think it was reviewed by the race director, and that came off this morning. So Not a good start for Aston Martin and Sebastian Vettel. And let's get into Q2 and who was looking good in Q2 and who was eliminated in Q2. So let's go for the plus positive side. I'll throw it over to you. And who was racing well in Q2?
Carlos Sainz throwing down a hottie. Carlos Sainz throwing out a hottie. That was nice to see. A little fire from the Ferrari, a little thunder, a little fire, getting that stallion out running as the Ferrari should be. But it was nice to see. Nice to see a little improvement there from Ferrari. That was my big take out of Q2. I blacked out after that.
Yeah, my big take out of Q2 was the fact that Sergio Perez finished 11th. Couldn't really get it going. Obviously, we saw today he had some electrical problems with the steering wheel, and it seemed that Red Bull wasn't even very surprised about these issues. But that was the biggest takeaway for me for Q2 was Sergio Perez ducking out early. We really thought he would compete definitely for the top 5 positions going into the first race of the season, and he finds himself hypothetically at this moment starting 11th, and we saw where he actually started today. But yeah, that was the biggest takeaway from Q2 for me. So then that gets us into Q3 outside of a couple of surprises, maybe Alonso being in there. Not many surprises.
Not shocked at all. I was not shocked at all by that because he's Fernando.
He is Fernando.
Come on. It's Fernando. The man's magical.
There's only so much you can do. Only so much magic you can do in that car. But so top 10. We saw Max take pole, his 4th pole of his career, and looked pretty damn good doing it. Lewis Hamilton came in 2nd, Bottas 3rd, and your boy Charles Leclerc. What's wrong with me? Charles Leclerc coming in 4th. Talk to me about the top 4 cheese.
Get the man's name right. Get the man's name right.
I caught myself. Go for it.
You did catch yourself. I'll give you that. I'll give you kudos on that. But yeah, that was a very impressive to see Ferrari coming in 4th there when nobody saw that one coming, to be honest. Very impressive. Charles did tell the team on the radio after that session was over, and he threw down the P4 spot. Did tell the team that was very impressive. They should be very proud of themselves. It's a big jump from where they were last year. So it was very nice to see. The Tifosi can be happy.
Well, they damn well should be. I mean, after a miserable 2020 and a decline starting in 2019, losing Sebastian Vettel from the team, bringing in Carlos Sainz, and having a pretty decent show here. I mean, obviously Sainz finished 8th, which is not the ideal position to be in if you're Ferrari, but Charles Leclerc did finish 4th. I think surprised a lot of people, including the own Ferrari team, and it's definitely something amazing to build on. I cannot recall too many times that we were finishing in the top 5 with Ferrari in 2020 as far as qualifying is concerned, so definitely something to build on.
Getting out of Q2 was a problem last year for Ferrari. So being 4th on the grid to start the season, first race, that's a massive jump. They were having trouble getting a Q2 last year. So starting in the top 4, massive jump. Little disappointed what Sainz did, to be honest, being an 8th, considering that, Charles did put it in the 4th fastest there. So probably could get a little more out of Sainz there. But yeah, I think that was my major take, that Charles Laff was a good flyer.
Yeah, it's also another year with Leclerc in the car. The car was really built for his specifications and the way he drives. So no surprise that Leclerc's going to finish above Sainz in almost every race and probably almost every qualifying this season, just because the way the car's built and Carlos Sainz is coming in as an outsider into Ferrari. Might see a different result later in the season, maybe halfway through, but definitely through the first, I would say 10 plus races, you're going to see a lot better showing from Charles Leclerc than you would Carlos Sainz. All right. So
I won't yell at you this time.
That's right. I yelled at myself. So that's pretty much qualifying. We didn't talk about McLaren, who finished, 6th, 7th. Started 6th, 7th. And Pierre Gasly. Look at that, pulling in and 5th.
Well, that was disappointing for McLaren, I would say. I would say McLaren was disappointed with that showing. I think they would have expected more at a qualifying. So I think they were disappointed.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they really should have taken one of those fifth or sixth. The fifth place spot. I think they really were looking for top 5. They finished in 6th, and that's pretty much rounds out qualifying. Pretty good qualifying session. Very exciting for many elements, and led us into today's race. Any last words on qualifying?
I think we covered it. Not shocked really by the top 2 versus the top 2, to be honest, or even top 3. So yeah, I think that was pretty much all we got to say on that. Let's move on.
Right.
We'll break and we'll come back. We'll do a little race recap. Big time. Fantastic race. Opener, Formula 1 2021 in the paddock. We'll be back.
What's up, everyone? Greeny from In the Paddock here. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Please let me explain. It's free. Okay, free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you for free, so it can be heard on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and many, many more. You can make money as well. Money with your podcast. No minimum listenership, and it's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app today or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Yes, we are back in the paddock. We are going to come back with the race recap segment of our radio or podcast program. Excuse me. I'm used to being on the radio from back in the day, son. And we're going to go over to the Greeny here in a second. But firstly, let me tell you something here, folks. This man was watching the race today with a notepad and paper like he was in school watching a movie the teacher said to watch, and he wants you to take notes and write a paper afterwards. This is what that man looked like today. He looked like a little schoolboy taking notes watching a movie in class.
Listen, first of all, I take no offense. I know you're trying to offend me, but I take absolutely no offense to my diligence, okay? My diligence is what makes me who I am. And honestly, I would have no freaking idea what I would be doing sitting here if I didn't have my copious notes. As I texted you this afternoon, I'm a copious note taker. It has been a quality of my life, and it will continue to be a quality. And I'm here to bring the best and most quality entertainment and Formula One knowledge of the race to our people in the paddock. And that's it. I mean,
Like a little schoolboy.
Whatever
like
you
a little
want to say.
schoolboy.
Whatever you want to say. You're lucky we are not in studio together, because I would probably come across the table and slap you in the mouth.
Bring it, son. Bring it. Bring it.
You're lucky this evening you have a computer between you. Maybe when we hit Imola, it might be a different story. But tonight...
Bring it, son. Bring it.
I will bring it. And we're going to bring it even harder here for a opening race 2021 Bahrain. And we're going to bring it as hard as Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen brought it today. So let's take us a little lap around the track. Opening lap. And away we go. First of all, first thoughts on, before we get into the blow by blow and lap by lap here, first thoughts on the first race of 2021.
Best race I've seen quite some time. On the edge of your seat at the end of the race. Heart pumping, sweating a little bit, I'm not going to lie, with the excitement. Definitely the way to kick off this season and to bring the fire and the thunder that F1 deserves to throw out there for the fans.
Yeah, and before we get to the end of the race, of course, we have to start at the beginning of the race. And really, the first thing that was shocking, as we mentioned in the earlier segment, was Vettel starting in 20th. And then in the formation lap, we had Sergio just die. I mean, I don't know what happened. I don't think Red Bull was surprised. It seemed that their garage was not surprised at all when the car just died in the middle of the track. We didn't know if we were going to start the race. We didn't know if Checo was even going to be racing. It was a lot of stuff up in the air. And for me personally, on a personal note, I had some cash on it. Okay, so I had Sergio for the win today. I had Max for the win. But, you know, as everyone knows and everyone listens, I divide my money 10 ways. So you go to the track, you go to the casino, you divide up your money 10 ways. We'll get to that later in our gambling segment of the show. But So personally, before the race even started, it was already disappointment. Obviously, it didn't end that way, but for me, formation lap was a little rough. And we didn't even have one formation lap; we had two formation laps. Obviously, because we had to keep those cars moving; those cars run hot, and you got to keep those cars on the track moving. You can't just keep them stationary while they had to move Checo off the track or eventually get him started in pit row, and went from there. So at the start, we were really trying my patience, and I think trying all of F1's patience, as we had to take one more formation lap around. 57 laps went to 56, and lights were off, and it was a little chaotic at the start. Go ahead, tell me. Let's talk about the first couple turns there, Cheese.
Well, we get Mazda spin. Comes out of the corner too hard, hits the gas, loses it, slams on the wall, and right away flags are out. And we get the safety car right off the bat.
Yeah, he right lit up that throttle, had no traction, and it was like it was like me driving a car out there. I mean, really, he just flew right off the track. There was really no excuse for it. He was in 20th at that point. I mean, Vettel used the chaos a little bit to go into 14th, but he had no excuse. He was the back of the pack. He should have been fine with the back of the pack. I think someone like anyone in a Haas today or Williams today, especially our rookie drivers in the Haas, their goal was to just finish the race. It wasn't about anything else but finishing the race. And Mazepin could not do that. I'm not even sure if he's capable of doing that. We talked, he finished in 6th in F2 last year. As you said, Kevin Magnussen, or there's many other capable drivers that could be in that seat. It is not. It is Nikita Mazepin. And to be honest, I think we know why. It's because of the cash.
Oh, it's absolutely, of course, because of the cash. Because the man has absolutely no reason to be in that car. Absolutely, 100%, no reason to be in that car. Rubbish.
Yeah, some of the other things we saw on lap 1 was Charles Leclerc, third time, Charles Leclerc and Valtteri Bottas going at it right out the gate. And that's something I think we have a chance of seeing. I think Ferrari fans would love to see that all season. Leclerc and Bottas going at each other the way they did, and it was pretty fun to watch and a pretty exciting opening lap there for Ferrari.
Oh, 100%, I would agree with that. It was a really good start by Charles. He got a good jump. Valtteri looked like he stumbled a little bit out of the gates, so that's why Charles got the good hard jump, but gave him a really hard battle all the way up into turn 4. It was a very good start for Ferrari.
Yeah, and another driver that had a really good start, I think, was Lando Norris, and he really charged out there early, and he was up on Leclerc as well, and him and Leclerc were also battling there in the first couple laps, all the way till lap 4, where we had the second safety car because Gasly lost his front wing there.
Yeah, Gasly made some contact with Danny, if I'm not mistaken. The front wing came off, so they threw the virtual safety car out there. For people that don't know, drivers have to run at a certain speed, keep a certain delta for lap times while the virtual safety car is on. The safety car is not deployed during a virtual safety car. So they threw that so they could get the debris off the track and without having the with the full safety car. Then they can throw the green flag a lot quicker or bring the car, everybody back green quicker that way. So they threw that. And it was a pretty just little bit too much gusto by Gasly there.
Yeah, a little bit too much from Gasly there. Lost the front wing and some kind of damage on the car. I'm not sure what it was because he had to retire later in the race. Not sure what the damage was. I'm sure we'll find out tomorrow what really happened with the Gasly car. Obviously, at that point, I wasn't even paying attention because of the Verstappen Hamilton battle. But go ahead.
I think there's probably some damage underneath the car underneath the car that messed that tweaked some of the downforce on the car and made the car a lot more difficult to drive. That's what I would probably take it of that, especially when wing comes off and comes underneath the car. It's definitely going to do some kind of damage. And these cars are pretty fragile, especially when you do if you take off a couple, these cars are so massively designed, even have tiny little bits and things that hang off the bottom of the car that make the air go certain ways, and you tweak a couple of those, the car's not going to handle anywhere near as you normally would hope it would. So I'm sure that had something to do with that. the reason we would have to retire later in the race.
Yeah, absolutely. And he was not the only DNF today. Continuing on, we saw, again, just the continuous between Leclerc and Norris and Bottas. A lot of jockeying between 3, 4, 5. I'm sure you would be very happy to see that all season with Leclerc, Norris, and Bottas jockeying there with 3, 4, 5 positions. And really Verstappen and Hamilton clearly, at least for today, at least in Bahrain, at least the first race, clearly better than everyone else. And early on in the race, it looked like Verstappen was going to win by 20 plus seconds. Obviously, that didn't end up being the case. And we get to about the laps in the teens. I believe the first pit was in lap 12. Tell me about the pit strategy today from all teams.
Well, it all started when Fernando came in and pretty much set off the pit cycle just by trying to do the undercut. And the undercut is a massive help when we're at Bahrain. Most teams try and get the undercut as much as they can, or try and protect against the undercut happening against them, since you can get a big jump in time. What the undercut means is you pit before your opponent, but in that case, you are on fresher tires for a lap before they come in, and hopefully when you have those fresher tires, you can gain a big chunk of time during that. So a lot of teams try and get the undercut, and when somebody goes, it just sets off the chain, and from that point on, the strategy game begins.
Yeah, it looks like everyone started on the mediums, went to the hards, and then went back to the mediums again, and that seemed to be the strategy today. It seemed to work well for some teams and not so well for other teams, but that seemed clearly to be the strategy for most teams going in. There was no real surprises. No one really tried to go rogue and do anything crazy today. And that's really the pit strategy today.
Mercedes had an interesting strategy, since they went with they kept the hard tires all weekend, pretty much, and then they used a bunch of hard tire patterns there for Lewis and Valtteri. And Red Bull was going with the mediums instead of hard, and then they went back to the medium there for Max to finish on. So that was the only difference really in between those top two teams, and gave us the finish that we wanted this year to start the season.
And then I think it really goes back to early in the race in lap 14 when Hamilton went in for a pit, and then Max stayed out there for a couple of laps. We thought Max was going to come in 15, maybe 16, and he stayed out till 18. And that might have been the difference in the race at that point. I know it was an interesting strategy to keep Max out, and he was one of the last, if not the last, maybe Vettel was the last to pit for the first pit.
Yeah, Vettel was the last to pit in the first bunch of stops. I think they were just trying different strategies just to try and somehow get him, hopefully to finish, to go over like a one-stopper, trying to get him to get some points out of that deal. That was pretty much what Aston Martin was pretty much going for in that one. But Max staying out was definitely surprising, to be honest, especially for the time that Lewis was gaining on him. But the strategy ended up working out very well for them. Of course, they wanted a better result than the one they ended up with, but their strategy was actually ended up being a very good strategy.
Yeah, it ended up being a great strategy when you get the win. Obviously, things could have went different. Obviously, if Max didn't go wide to pass, and obviously as well, there's still some controversy there. I have not watched the replay enough times at this point. But FIA,
he had all four tires off the track. He had
all four tires off the track.
All four tires off. Was actually, yeah, he was. You could clearly see. I would say, I watched it a couple times. I would say probably a good tire and a half over the track limits. So, I mean, he was going to have to give that spot up, or he was definitely going to get a penalty, 100%.
Right on. And if he got a 5-second penalty, it wouldn't have mattered anyway.
I don't think he was going to make up 5 seconds on Lewis with that few laps remaining. At the end there, you could see he was even starting to struggle on his tires a bit when he was trying to come back after giving Lewis back the spot. So I think he burnt his tires up a little bit trying to catch Lewis the first time, and I think he had too much heat in him after he got to get the spot back up to Lewis. but I just don't think he had the tires to come back, and that's why he was unable to. I think he burned him up trying to catch Lewis there.
Yeah, and then, you look at a little bit earlier than that in the race, and obviously a big milestone moment, and definitely don't want to fail to mention lap 43. Lewis Hamilton breaks Michael Schumacher's record for most career laps led, 5,112 career laps. Obviously, he finished a little bit higher than that, 13 plus, so he's at 5,125 laps led. The most in Formula One history. Lewis Hamilton continues to break records, continues to impress, and defeats the odds today to win the Bahrain Grand Prix.
Well, that's why the man's knighted. He's Sir Lewis Hamilton. He's the GOAT. He's the GOAT. He's the greatest Formula One driver to walk the face of the earth at this point in time. Hands down, 100%. The man is knighted. Only F1 driver to be knighted while he's still in the car.
The only one in history, only Formula One race driver.
And I would like to say on this show, I think we should, from this henceforth, we should not refer to him as just Lewis Hamilton. We should refer to him as his name is now, as in Sir Lewis Hamilton.
Sir Lewis, first of his name?
First of his name.
And when he wins, sir, you need to bend the knee.
You got to bend the knee. He's also the GOAT, so it's another reason to bend the knee.
Right on. So that was pretty much the race in a nutshell. Bottas takes fastest lap, pits at lap 55, comes out 56, and takes it. I see ya. I'm going to go to you one more time before we go to break. Cheese, finish up your race thoughts before we go to break.
Well, I think we should also bring up the Mercedes, should we say gaff or kerfuffle with Bottas in the pits there?
Well, yes, that was. Go ahead. It reminded us of how this season
that
ended.
Was quite the kerfuffle.
Year. Reminded us how the season ended last year. Nobody wants a 10.9 second pit stop. I think that was the time.
We're putting tires in the wrong car, on the wrong places, wrong people's sets, madness. They were a complete kerfuffle. As we discussed in a prior show, the odds of Mr. Wolf there dropping another bomb, because he dropped some bombs after that kerfuffle last year, but major kerfuffle today with Bottas's pit stop, his second stop when they couldn't get the right front off, but then before they could get it off, the front jackman dropped the car, so they had to position the jack, bring the car back up, get the tire off, get it back on. It was a 10-second stop, completely embarrassing. 10-second stop in Formula One is like a half an hour for the rest of the world. Total embarrassment. Another kerfuffle that I'm sure Mercedes will definitely be looking at and making sure that does not happen. But it's definitely another chink in the armor for Mercedes, who did end up winning the race, of course. But maybe even could have had Valtteri challenging Verstappen for second place if they didn't have that kerfuffle.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was not good. It was not good. And to do that, finishing last year with just a disaster, with the whole confusion with the pit stops and the stacking that pit stop, which had the wrong tires and the wrong cars and illegal tire situations going on last year, and now coming out this year, and you really think that, you know what, we may not be able to improve the engine as much as we want. We may not be able to improve the throttle as much as we want. We may not be able to improve the rear differential as much as we want, but we can improve how we get the tires on the damn car. We can work on that. That's something we can improve on. There's a lot of things we can't get better. There's a lot of things that Mercedes won't be better than Red Bull at this season. Getting your freaking tires on the freaking car should be at least somewhat competitive. Red Bull's putting a 1.9 out there. They put a 1.9 second pit stop out there, and you're putting a 10.9 second pit stop. That can't continue if Mercedes wants to continue on this season. And you cannot go by the will and coolions of freaking Lewis Hamilton this season to get you through, because it's not going to happen every race. Lewis was fantastic today. As I said last week, Lewis is going to will himself to win some races, regardless of how good the car is or how non-competitive that car might be in a situation. But you can't leave it to Lewis every single race to put a gutsy performance out like that. It's not going to happen every week.
Oh, 100%. That was a major gaffe. Like I said, they could have been challenging for second place if they didn't have that, because that's a lot of time to lose. That's a massive, massive chunk of time to lose in Formula One. Massive, massive chunk of time to lose. So that really can't happen, especially if they want to go for the constructors, because you can't have those kind of gaffes. That's a massive gaffe, massive gaffe, massive.
Yeah. And that could be the difference, honestly, in what the fall looks like and what October, November looks like. If it's going to be competitive, it could come down to the pits, and that's not what you want to. It's like in any other sport. You don't want to be like, well, the your team trainer isn't getting the players back on the field quick enough. That's not the error you want to have on your franchise. That's not the errors you want on your team. That's not the direction you want to go. You want to have that stuff solid, and what happens on the field, what happens on the racetrack, it happens. But to have that happen in the garage and have that happen in the pits, that's not good. If it happened once, if it happened twice, but now you're seeing it multiple times. Once is one thing, twice, but three times.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And that's a fool. That's a twice. That's a shame on them.
Well, on that note, Cheese,
that's a shame on them. And then just to finish, I was just gonna say, just to finish off the segment real quick, buddy. That finish, epic.
Yeah, and
epic battle.
We'll get to that finish.
Battle.
We'll get to that finish in the next segment. We still have to talk about Vettel and Ocon's disaster on lap 45, and Sebastian Vettel may or may not have lost a step. I know we talked about last week if he's even going to finish the season racing at all. And after this race weekend, I'm not so optimistic in the future of Sebastian Vettel in Formula One. Prove me wrong. In the paddock, Greeny and The Cheese after this. What's up, everyone, in the paddock, and we are back. So let's talk about the last 15 laps here. We had, and when was the last Verstappen pit? It was lap 40. He pitted for the second time, and he ended up coming out of the pits 8.5 seconds behind Hamilton, and the last 16 laps, and away we go.
Oh, it was a mad charge from Mad Max. He was charging on his way to catch Lewis, and that was what it was all about. Got to go for the win, baby.
Yeah, so in the meantime, as that was going down after lap 40, we get to an interesting situation on lap 45 where Sebastian Vettel has an incident with Esteban Ocon, just kind of slams into the back of Esteban Ocon, and there really should be a braking zone. He's moving into the braking zone. He's obviously turning right. There's no other way he's going to go but turn right. And Sebastian Vettel slams into the back of him and acts surprised, as if Esteban Ocon wasn't going to be slowing down to make a right turn. So I know
it was completely overzealous by Seb. He deserved to get the penalty for causing a collision. Way too gung-ho iguana. Sorry to say, but it's starting to be a kind of a constant thing here with Seb. The overzealous, over-aggressive moves that he's trying to make, causing collisions. So seems like he has lost a step.
Yeah, and it's not like in Formula One, and very disappointing to see a former four-time champion losing a step like that. But it's been a while since he's been on top. It's really been, 2017 was competitive, maybe 2018 was he competitive, maybe the first half of 2018. And really since the second half of 2018, it's really all been downhill fairly quickly for Sebastian Vettel. A lot of, eliminations in Q2 last season. We saw, getting dumped in Q3 Q1 in the opening weekend here. And Michael Massey, the race director, is not so happy about the situation that's going down on the track. I know he's spent a lot of time really talking about moving in the braking zone and race lines and really drivers needing to respect each other, because we don't want a season that has safety cars every 5 laps. We want to avoid safety cars. We really do. We want to let everyone race. It's best for the sport to let everyone race. Obviously, things happen. Mostly the first couple laps, people are knocking into each other. The first couple turns of any race, we could possibly have an incident. But when you're at lap 45 and you're back in 11th, 12th, 13th place, and you're barely battling for points, and you're going to change the race outcome for the front of the pack, it really is, and Michael Massey's right, it really goes against the entire integrity of Formula One to have situations in the back of the pack that are going to affect the front of the pack, especially in the last 10 laps.
Oh, 100%. That's not what you want to see. You don't want to see these things. And that's why Massey drops the hammer at times and makes these statements and gives the drivers instructions every weekend before the races. And they want to try and cut this as much out of the sport as possible. And it's been happening a lot from Seb. Even just him spinning himself out, even the last couple of years when he was with Ferrari here. So definitely has lost a step. And if he keeps continuing getting points on his super license, which he got a massive 5 over this weekend alone, you get 12 points and you're suspended over a rolling 12-month period. So they keeps doing these things. He could find himself suspended the race and not saying that this couldn't happen, but it absolutely could, because the world of a F1 driver, if you don't put up results, you're going to lose your seat and somebody else is going to take it. And if the results don't come, he could end up losing a seat.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I was talking about this in the season show that I'm really worried about Sebastian Vettel. I don't think he's been decent since the first half of 2018, where he was phenomenal in the first half of 2018. And I know Ferrari had some car issues in the second half of 2018. He had a whole bunch of DNFs that were mechanical issues that probably weren't his fault. But at the same time, there were a lot of situations that were his fault and kind of were folded in with all the mechanical issues 2018 and 2019 Ferrari had. And it's really coming fleshed out right now when Aston Martin had no issues today in his vehicle, and a lot of unforced errors by him. So, but moving on from Vettel, we'll see what the future brings for him and Aston Martin, but I don't know how much long-term patience they're going to have. Obviously, they're going to stick with him for as long as possible, but it's very frustrating to watch. And it's very frustrating to watch when someone in the back of the pack is going to affect the front of the pack late in the race. But speaking of which, it did not cause a safety car, as we said. Thank goodness there wasn't a safety car deployed. There was some debris on the track, so a possibility of a safety car being deployed was in play. What it led to was Lewis Hamilton a couple laps later gets on the radio and says, "Hey boys, leave it to me." And even then, at lap 49, 7 laps to go, how did you feel about Max's chances with going into the last 7 laps?
Oh, I thought he had it. Lewis even came on even a little earlier and said he had nothing left in the rears. So he means he didn't really have any rear tires left. Wasn't getting any grip coming out the corners. So when you hear that, and then as soon as Bono came on the radio and said to Lewis, Max is the car behind, and Lewis says, "Just leave it to me, Bono. Leave me alone. Get out of my ear. I don't want to hear nothing. I know what's going on, and I know I gotta hoof it, but I'm not sure if I'm gonna have the car to hoof it." So he doesn't want any distractions in his ear. Max was coming. I really thought Max had the race. I thought Max was gonna have the race.
Yeah, and how ironic is it that Sergio Perez and Red Bull's pre-lap or formation lap car dying really possibly affected the outcome of the race way more than they thought they would? Because if there was an extra lap, if they went 57 instead of 56, there was a good chance Verstappen would have passed Hamilton. Definitely a good chance. There's a good chance Hamilton still would have won, but there was definitely a better chance. He was within a second the whole time, and he had multiple opportunities to pass. Hamilton had on lap 51 went wide at turn 10, and then Verstappen overtook Hamilton. Obviously, as you said before, all 4 tires were off track, and Verstappen had to give that position back, and Hamilton coasted the last 3.5 laps to victory.
Oh yeah, pretty much. I wouldn't say coasted. I mean, I think he was very worried and a little anxious there, because Max did start to close there in the last lap. Did get it close, did get it back to within the DSR range, but was just inside the DSR range and just didn't have the time needed. In the Sergio issue on the formation lap, definitely came back and bit him. And
Yeah,
Merck gets the win. Shocking to see Merck actually get the win this race. Definitely Red Bull were the the pre-favorites for this race 100%. Definitely a little shock to see it, but then also you can also say that you're not shocked because it is Sir Lewis Hamilton and he is the best racing car driver on the planet.
Yeah, I really feel probably for the first time in 4 years that Mercedes did not have clearly the best car on track today. Not since
I would
Ferrari.
I would even say even longer than that. I would say what since what is it? Germany
2014.
2014?
Germany 2014. Yes, and then
2014
Germany
was the last time a Mercedes driver was not in first in the championship drivers points, or Mercedes was not in first in the constructors.
I thought it was Germany 2018. Maybe I'm way off, but
No, it's definitely way longer than that.
way before that.
Definitely way longer than that. It's definitely got to be like 2014, I think, or something.
Well, that result did not change this weekend, although it was threatened. It was threatened, but it did not change.
It was definitely threatened. But as we even went over on our preseason special, until somebody knocks the king out of the throne, you're still the king.
Yeah, I think we
and
both
Mercedes has proven they are still the king. Sir Lewis is still the best racing car driver on the planet. Definitely in the prime of his career. But for the first time, it wasn't the car. It was Lewis that willed that team to victory today.
Absolutely. And something we both talked about last week was that Lewis Hamilton is going to, and has the ability to, as one of the greatest athletes on the planet right now, he has the ability to will himself with the inferior car at times. He's going to will himself some wins. Does that mean he's going to win every race? No. Does that mean that he's going to blow everyone away as he did for the last 4 or 5 seasons, or at least last 3 seasons where he was just hands down, it was over by the summer? No, not necessarily. But there's a lot of work to do. Max Verstappen is great, and I think he'll be competitive, very competitive. I think he has a shot to win. But Lewis Hamilton he's the man.
Lewis is king. Sir Lewis is the king. He's the best racing car driver on the planet. And this year, Lewis is his talent and his skill is definitely going to give Mercedes a couple wins this year when they don't have the superior car. That's the way Mercedes is going to have to win the title this year, and how Lewis can win the Drivers' Championship this year is he is going to have to will and carry the team just with his skill and his talent to waste wins and podiums this year for them to be the place they want to finish the year. But it's definitely going to be him willing the car and not the car pushing him. It's going to be Lewis taking the car.
Great insight. Wonderful segment there, Cheese. Any final thoughts before we leave the Bahrain Grand Prix?
Just an amazing race. Can't wait for the next race in Imola now.
Can't wait for Imola. And we're gonna have a special Imola preview in 2 weeks. Next week is Easter. 2 weeks. We are going to have a special Imola preview show, but still don't go anywhere. Stay right there. We'll be back with our final segment. We got Flying Lap with Cheese. I got some questions for you. And of course, we have our gambling segment, Taking Risks. So get your pen and paper and some cash ready. Greeny and the Cheese in the paddock. Back after this.
And we are back in the paddock opening weekend. And I know everybody's ready for this segment. Oh, yeah. If you're a gambler, get them ears perked up. Get that pen and paper out. We're taking risks. Greeny, let's hear it.
Yeah,
and I think your picks last week were belly up trash picks. I think you lost a bunch of cash.
Yeah, so I went 2 for 8 in my 10 bets. Two wins, 8 losses. So not great. There's no guys coming yet, but I think at some point they're going to be Google mapping the way to my house, maybe coming from the golf store or from, the baseball store, maybe showing me their new bats or clubs. But right now we're good. Right now we're all paid up and good. We got that, Biden money. So we're able to cover for the week. We'll see what happens in Imola, but I'm going to have much better bets in Imola. We're going to talk about that next week. So here's my frustration. And I think the money was right, and I think my head was in the right place. First of all, let's talk about the wins. Let's talk about Yuki Tsunoda finishing in the top 10. Definitely had my money with Yuki Tsunoda getting points. He finished 9th. I mean, that was really, even beat my expectations. I was a little worried there as he started the race, and I think, what did he qualify in 13th? And I was like, what the hell am I doing? First of all, I put the bets down before qualifying, which was dumb. I think I was just super excited. I was over anxious. I'm not going to lie. I was over anxious. So first of all, first mistake. And when you make mistakes in this game, some guys might show up to your house. So you don't want to make mistakes in this game. So first mistake, putting money down before qualifying. Don't do that. I did spread my money out 10 ways, which was always smart. I had Perez winning a couple different ways, and I had Max winning a couple different ways. I had him in trifectas. I was really pro Red Bull this week, as many people were, and that was dumb. I had, obviously, if you're going to bet and you think Red Bull's going to win the race, you want to bet on the number 2 driver over the number 1 driver because it's going to pay out more, especially when you're going to go with the trifecta. And my trifecta was Sergio, Hamilton, and Max. Obviously, nobody even finished in those positions. It went Hamilton, Max, and Bottas, which is almost like a logical pick. I don't know what that would have paid out. Probably would have paid out pretty well. And I think betting on Hamilton in this race would have paid out 3-1. So my bad. I put no money on Hamilton, and I had no respect for Mercedes, and they, kicked me between the legs there, and it was a little bit of pain. So definitely not a great week. Definitely taking risks this week, which means I have to go bigger risks for Imola, because there's when you're rolling with the big dogs.
Oh yeah.
You don't.
Oh yeah. Now we're gonna go bet double hard. Now we're gonna go double hard.
We're not talking we're not talking about more money, and we're not talking about more bets. We're still going to stick with 10 bets, and we're going to talk about it in 2 weeks because we got a 3-week gap here between races. So we got some time to think. We got some time for hopefully my wife to not find out how much money I rolled up this weekend. And really, I think that's the most important thing, that my wife doesn't find out.
Well, you better hope she doesn't listen to this podcast program. That's all I can tell you, son.
Yes, no doubt about that. I'm not so worried about that one. So bottom line, 2 wins, 8 losses. We're down $600 for the season, which is not terrible, but it's not great. And we're going to look to make that up in the next race. So that means I got to go 8 and 2.
Whoa. Back the beep. Back up the garbage truck, because that's what your picks were this week, were garbage. Number 2 question I have. Did you just say 600? What happened to you take your $100 and you spread it over 10 bets? Did I just hear 600?
Well, hold on. First of all, that's what rookies do. $100, 10 ways. And because if you're a rookie and you got $100 to spend, the problem is when you're a rookie, you're either going to drop $100 on one driver to win, which is just ridiculous. You might as well just put it on black. Probably you have much better odds on black than you do picking a driver and putting $100 down. So you want to spread the love around. That's really about it. Because if you get a trifecta, if I go 1-9, right, 1 win and 9 losses, but my 1 win is a trifecta or a superfecta, I'm going to make all that money back and then some. So it's not about how many. It's not about what you bet on, or it is about what you bet on and how many bets you make. You want to spread it around. spread the love around, give everyone a chance, and hope for the best. But yeah, $600. That's not honestly. That's not bad. It's not bad.
That's half your Biden money. That's half your pool of cash, son.
Listen, we got 22 races to make that up. I did well with Syracuse. I put Syracuse to the Sweet 16 out of the 11 seed, even though this is not an NCAA basketball show. I did make some money back there. But yeah, in F1, we're losing. We're in the red, big fat red. First race of the season. We're warming up.
Minus 600 to
He's
start
writing it
the
down.
year. That's a very, very poor showing, my friend.
It was a Nikita
poor
Mazepin style showing this week.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe Sebastian Vettel. Maybe I'll give a little higher scale. So that is my week in gambling. That's how we're taking risks, baby. And we'll be back in 2 weeks to take some more risks. And if you want to lose money too, you should get a pen and paper ready, and you should meet me back here in 2 weeks.
Yeah, if you want to lose money, you should listen to that. $600 embarrassment. Hope nobody put money on your rubbish, because I think I'd come and kick your own derriere for that rubbish. That was poor, disgusting, atrocious, rubbish. I'm running out of adjectives right now. Sad.
It wasn't that much rubbish. It really wasn't. If you look at it and if you know how a degenerate's mind works.
Minus 600. Minus 600. How can you not say that it's not rubbish?
Don't worry about the result.
How can you tell me not rubbish? That's rubbish. Rubbish.
Think about the process, not the results. I think that's what matters. Anyway, enough about my losses, and let's get into it. We're going to throw it back your way to Cheese, because we are going to do a flying lap. All right, I got some questions for you.
Let's do it.
The show. I got some questions for you to close out the show, and you did great last week with some predictions. Again, I think we were both looking at Yuki Tsunoda finishing top 10. Nailed it. A little less so on Ferrari's better showings. I think I nailed it with 6th and 8th with Leclerc.
It's one race.
Carlos Sainz. It is one race. I'm just saying it's one race, I did pick both Ferraris to finish top 10, which was one of my 2 wins. So, but all right,
look at that! All the trash you talk about Ferrari, and you get a win with the Ferrari bet. Yeah, that's right, son. All right, let's bring it. Let's bring these questions. We're taking a flying lap. Let's do it.
All right, first question right out the gate. Lando Norris, is he going to finish top 5 this year?
Yes.
Whoa.
Yes, I like this showing. He looked very quick. He looked very quick. If he keeps that up, yes, he can finish top 5.
Wow.
Yes.
All right. That's big. I mean, we weren't even talking. We were talking about Lando finishing 7th, 8th last week, and I think Lando had a great showing. The 21-year-old looked great out there. He had a great showing. He was solid start to finish.
Looked good.
Car looked great. I mean, McLaren looked really good, and I think McLaren, as we talked about last week, and I had McLaren 3rd, you had Ferrari 4th. I had McLaren 3rd, Ferrari 4th. You had Ferrari 3rd, McLaren 4th. I think it's going to be more of a battle than I made it out to be last week, and if anything's evident by today's results. All right. Fernando Alonso in the Alpine, who you're so high on. Is Fernando Alonso going to finish in Imola?
Ooh.
DNF today.
I will say yes. I mean, Ocon did finish the race, or did he DNF as well?
Ocon finished 13th.
He finished 13th, yeah. So I'm going to say yes. Hopefully they don't have a mechanical issue next race, but I will say yes. Next question.
All right.
Let's keep this hot lap going.
Next question. George Russell had a fairly decent showing today. Again, chances George Russell over under 10. He makes it out of Q1 this season. Over under 10. He made it once. Can he do it 9 more times?
Well, he's Saturday George, so I'm going to say yes.
All right.
He's Saturday George.
Over under after watching today's race, Lewis Hamilton, 12 and a half wins. Over under. That's a huge number after everything we saw.
That's a big number. That's a big number. I'm going to say Sir Lewis will cover that.
Cover?
He will cover.
Singing a different tune from last week. We're that impressed with Lewis Hamilton today. I mean, it was a phenomenal run today. I mean, I think anyone...
He willed that car to victory today. He willed it. Got a little lucky, but sometimes you got to be lucky in racing. And I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say he covers.
All right. Over under 12 and a half as well. Nikita Mazepin finishes this year. Just getting around the track, finishing the race.
Under. Mazepin will spin and wreck the car many times this year. Many times. No, under. He's trash. Embarrassment, trash. Yeah. I put money on that one.
Over, under. Actually, no, I'm sorry. Up or down? Sebastian Vettel finishes the season with Aston Martin.
Up. He will finish the season with Aston Martin. If the results don't start to show, he might not be in the seat next season, but he will finish the year in the car.
Over, under. Sergio Perez makes podium in Imola. I'm sorry, up or down?
I'm going to say no. Although that is a really tough question because he was quite impressive after the incident with the formation lap today. But once he got the car going and he was hoofing it. He was hoofing. My driver of the day, 100%.
Yeah, I think he's got to be everyone's driver of the day. I mean,
I'm going to say for Imola, no. Down. Because the Red Bull had issues. Had mechanical issues today. You got Perez with the electrical issues. They did change some things before the race, if I'm not mistaken. And then Max also had the differential issue. So a little bit of a reliability thing there. So I'm going to say just right off the bat here, I'm going to just my gut, no.
All right. I mean, I think he looked great. There was obviously engine issues and mechanical issues, and not much you can do about mechanical issues. Driver can drive the car, and then the mechanics can build the car, and the constructors build it. Not much he can do there. All right, final question. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Odds, and this is a question from last week. We said 4.5 podiums over for Ferrari. Looked like Ferrari probably might have been a little bit better than that. So I'll ask the question again. 6.5 podiums this season, Ferrari, 22 races to go. Over or under? Pushing the number up.
Under.
So it's probably going to be 5 podiums, you're saying. 5 or 6 podiums. It's a lot of podiums.
Yeah, I'm going to say 5 or 6.
5 or
I'm
6
going to say
podiums.
5
All
or
right.
6.
All right. Well, adjusted numbers after the first week. We obviously are always adjusting. There was definitely a lot of things we did not talk about today, including Kimi Räikkönen, 41-year-old, getting on the track, finishing 11th, just outside the points. We didn't talk about Lance Stroll finishing in 10th, getting some points on the board as well. So a lot of other things happened. We're going to get to a lot more stuff in 2 weeks when we come back. We'll be off for Easter. So for all those listening, happy Easter. And a big shout out to Billy in the truck. Billy, brand new listener to the show, and he's driving the truck across PA. So he's hauling that 18-wheeler. So big ups to Billy. Thanks for listening. And any last words, Cheese?
Westbound with the hammer down, running with the big dogs, huh?
Running with the big dogs, just the way we like it.
Westbound with the hammer down, son.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us in the paddock. We'll be back in 2 weeks with our Imola preview. And check us out on Spotify. Check us out on Instagram. Cheese in the Paddock and Greeny in the Paddock. Check us out on Instagram for all weekly updates, some great memes, and some fun jokes. And hit us up there if you want to talk. And in the paddock USA at gmail.com. Hit us up there if you want to send us a message. We'd be happy to read your questions live on our show. So, any last words, Cheese?
We will see you in 2 weeks for the Imola Freeview special episode. Yes, one of my favorite tracks. I'm so glad it's back on the calendar.
Yeah, you get fired up for Imola. And if this race is any prediction, if we can get 80% of what we got today in Imola, it's going to be a great race. So thanks all for joining us in the paddock. Greeny and the Cheese will be back in 2 weeks. Happy Easter, everyone. And a happy Passover. Peace.